Waiting until the new year, until you start something, is generally not a great idea. I am chatting with you about why we do this, about what I think we can do instead, and I am going to be answering all of your questions about my group coaching program, Grow a Profitable Practice from the Inside Out. So let's get to something that a lot of us do. I used to do it, but I don't do it anymore. And it is New Year's resolutions. And in the year of 2020, so many of us are like, I'm just waiting till 2021. We all had a brutal 2020. I think we're all ready to put it behind us. And at the same time, it's tempting to say, I'm just going to wait these next 3 weeks before I start anything new. And I saw a reel. If you know who it is, tell me. I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. But they equated this to waiting until 2021 to get started on something. The same thing as going to your fridge, opening it, shutting it, walking away, coming back, opening it to see if something had changed. When in reality, if you hadn't gone out and Instacarted things or gone grocery shopping, obviously all the same stuff is going to be in your fridge. And that's what I think this whole idea of waiting until 2021 is all about. It's I'm just going to stop doing everything and wait until 2021. And this is not about saying oh, throw caution to the wind. You have to grind, you have to hustle, you have to finish these next, 20 days, hard. I don't get down with that stuff either. This is more about how can we start to lay the breadcrumbs for you to make sustainable behavior change for the things that you want to actually change? Case in point, on the day after Thanksgiving, my partner and I didn't do anything. We just hung out at home because we care about our community and staying safe, and keeping our community members safe. So we didn't do anything. I wake up the next morning. I'd had a glass of wine, maybe two. And I just felt a touch foggy. And I had realized that over the course of quarantine, I had turned more and more to a glass of wine or a beer as my kind of wind down. And I want to preface this with, I do not have a substance use disorder. I do not struggle with alcoholism. And at the same time, I knew hey, this is something that, I want to maybe hit pause on for a little bit. And so the day after, I woke up after Thanksgiving, I was like, oh, you know what I'll do? I did this exact thing. I was like, I'll just wait until the new year. Because the reality is, between, Thanksgiving at that point in time, if you're in the States, and the new year, there are going to be all these opportunities where I'm going to want to have an alcoholic beverage. And so I had kind of noodled on it. And I was like, all right, I'll wait until then. I'll wait until January 1st and then I'll do it. And then I was like, no, I won't, because what's going to happen is on January 1st, I'm going to say the exact same thing. I'm going to be well, there's going to be this opportunity, this new brewery opened up or this new winery opened up and I really want to try this, or so-and-so gifted me booze for alcohol or for alcohol, gifted me booze over the holidays. And I really wanted to try it. So instead I just downloaded an app. And I was like, I'm just going to not drink for a little while and see what happens. And I am, I think 12 days sober today. So that is an example of why we do this. We procrastinate and we push things off because we think something drastic will have changed between now and when we decide to start on whatever that goal is. So if you're exhausted and you're I know I need to work on my sleep hygiene, but I know what I'll do. I'll wait until January 1st. Then that means you're missing out potentially on 3 weeks of starting to work on cultivating a good habit for your sleep and going to bed at a reasonable time and being off screens, which I am terrible at, not caffeinating before bed, et cetera, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about. And I think a lot of it is also, this fear of failure. And I say failure not in the way of oh, you failed, you're a terrible human, but this fear of making a mistake, right? As humans, we want to do well. We want to pursue things that are going to be beneficial to us. And so, we hold back on taking these chances, right? We want to protect ourselves. That's a normal thing. So as we kind of shift into the FAQs, because if you don't know, deadline is tomorrow, December 9th, if you're watching this in real time. to enroll in my group coaching program, Grow a Profitable Practice from the Inside Out. And I wanted to answer all your questions. I am not the type of salesperson. I hesitate to even say that, but I think it's important to normalize this idea of selling. But I'm not the type of salesperson to say, like, I'm not going to tell you any of the downsides of this program. I'm the only person to solve your problems, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to scare you into joining. I don't want anybody in the program who does not want to be there. So I really want to make sure all of your questions are answered. So I'm going to start by answering some of like the frequently asked questions. And if you have questions about the program, please, please, please type them in the comments as we go along. Okay. So who is Grow a Profitable Practice from the Inside Out for? So it is really for you if you are in private practice and you know you are kind of bumping into some money mindset issues and you are not sure what to do, or you have tried to resolve them on your own with minimal success. It might be for you if you're in private practice and you're kind of saying yes to everybody, but then half of the time you're keeping your fingers crossed that your clients cancel because you know they're not a good fit for you. That might be a good sign that we need to do some work around your money mindset and niching. It is for you even if you aren't maybe a therapist, but you are in the helping and healing profession. So many of us in the helping and healing profession get the same messages about our work, that in order to be accessible, we have to charge nothing or we have to work for free. I was talking to somebody the other day who was like, I really struggle with this idea of living in a capitalist society and also charging for my services, right? So butting up against some of those things, if you need to help working through them, I am here. And that's what the group is for. And my favorite part about the group is not just that I'm here like telling you what to do, but my favorite part of the group is the group part of it, right? The importance of saying like, hey, we are in this together. I'm not the only person who has struggled with this. And I want other people kind of in my corner who can cheer me on, right? Whether you're a clinical therapist or you're another helper and healer, a lot of us have support in the delivery of what we do, right? We have support if you're a helper healer in new trainings or certificates, interventions, tips, tactics. Like we have a lot of support in that realm, but we don't tend to have a lot of support in the business realm of things. But before we ever get into the business stuff in my program, we first talk about money mindset and we talk about it in a holistic and evidence-based way. Meaning, I am not going to spiritual bypass you and say like, just abundance mindset it, just like vision board it and everything will be happy. I don't play that game. I include what are the messages that you soaked up about money based on your race, based on your culture, based on how you were socialized, whether you were socialized as a boy or a girl. We take into consideration all of these other things. What about the profession that you came from? You know, if you're like me and you're a social worker, you might have heard things like you didn't go into this field to make money, or you shouldn't expect to make money as a social worker, or my personal favorite, I don't think social workers who go into private practice are really social workers, right? So we have to face some of those things. So we spend the first 3 weeks really digging into that to help rewrite those money stories in a healthy way. So we can say, look, we do live in a capitalist world. How can we practice being conscious capitalists and being ethical as we support ourselves? Because I'm a believer that financial self-care is a part of self-care. Okay. Another question that I get a lot is who is not a good fit? Look, I'm not going to say that this is for you if you are at like ground zero or like -5. You're like thinking about starting a private practice, but you're not quite there. I'm not going to be covering things like how to find an office, whether or not to get on insurance panels, obtaining, what's the ID number, the provider ID number, or whether or not to like use Google Voice or Cricket or something like that. Like those are not the things that we are going to be talking about. I will say if you're in group practice or you are comfortable doing that legwork on your own and you haven't fully started your private practice, this group still might be a good fit. I'm just not covering those things in the group. The other thing of who it's not for is people who just want strategy. I love me some strategy. I am a Virgo. I love a list. I love a plan. I love a to-do. And strategy alone is not going to change the way that you can have all the strategy in the world about what your fee should be, but if you don't have the mindset and have worked on the psychological reasons why it's hard for you to raise your rates in the first place, you won't be able to raise your rates, right? Same thing when it comes to marketing. You might have a beautiful content plan strategized and mapped out, but if you're terrified of showing up on Instagram, that's not going to make a difference, right? We have to be comfortable working on the mindset side of things. So if you're interested in working on the mindset side of things, then yes, my program's for you. But if all you want is strategy, you just want to know like what your brand colors should be or how many times you should post on Instagram, then it's not a good fit for you. I would also say you have to be willing to be coached. And I know that sounds weird, but you have to come kind of with a beginner's mind of saying, look, I might know some of this stuff, but I'm willing to try again or I'm willing to try in a new way. I'm going to pause and take a sip. If you follow me, you know that this is kombucha and not wine. So please do not be alarmed. All right, what exactly is included in the 9 weeks? Buckle up. There's a lot, and I don't want it to be content overwhelm. And actually, let me answer a different question before I talk about what's included. How is this program different than a course? I love a course, but this is not a course. A course is a top-down, I'm teaching, you are learning. A group program, in my mind, is collaborative, it's experiential in nature. And rather than me being firmly in the role of teacher and you firmly being in the role of student, we both kind of work together. So I will absolutely teach and offer tips and insights. I love that stuff. But I also want for you to be able to bounce ideas off of other people in the group. I want you to get feedback from people who aren't me. And I want for you to be able to talk to other folks in the group. So a course to me is super curriculum heavy, and you are more kind of a passive participant. Whereas in this group coaching program, of course, there is some curriculum, but I'm not just going to throw modules at you and not be there. So that I hope helps to kind of understand what's the difference between this and a course. And to me, there's pros and cons, right? With a course, you can do it at your own pace, but we know courses have a historically low finish rate. Something like 83% of online courses are not completed. We know that writing down your goals increases your chances of completing that goal by 42%. And doing it in a group of people who are also working on the same thing can increase your chance of achieving that behavior changer goal by 72%. I did not make those up. Those are stats from research, from evidence-based papers, because I spent 4 years in psychiatric research and I love me some data. Okay, let me take a breath. Okay. Now, let me tell you what is actually included. So now that we know the difference between a course and a group coaching program, let me tell you a little bit about what's included. Over the course of these 9 weeks, there are 7 live educational modules. That means I'll come on and I'll teach for, anywhere from 50 to 90% of the time I'll be teaching during those because those are the content heavy ones. Then there is 1 pre-recorded module. Then there are 2 live kind of Q&A sessions. Those are really group coaching sessions. I'm doing a bonus training on what you should be spending money on depending on what stage of growth you're in your private practice. So if you're like pulling your hair out and you're like, oh my gosh, Lindsay, should I be paying money for a virtual assistant or should I be spending money on a website domain? This will help you. I'll say like, look, if you're here, this is where you should be spending money. If you're here, this is where you should be spending money. Cool. So that's a bonus training. And then 2 75-minute co-working sessions. So the co-working sessions are where we show up on Zoom, we put ourselves on mute, we start out by saying like, here's the goal I'm working on. Here's the thing on my to-do list. I have to knock it out, whether it's rewatching a module because, plot twist, not a plot twist. This is not surprising at all. All of the education modules are recorded. So if you cannot come live, you can watch them. So let's say you missed one. You can use that co-working session to say, hey, I've got to rewatch the money stories module, or hey, I have to watch the module on how to price my services. Or maybe you need to use that co-working time to rewrite the words on your website, or you need to use that co-working time to kind of play around with what your fee is going to be, right? But we know that accountability can help. So we come on, we all share what we're working on, then we put ourselves on mute and work. It sounds bonkers bananas, but I started doing it with strangers, which is I know how wild that sounds, and it has made such a difference in my productivity to know that, like, even if I'm just working on an email or even if I'm working on content for Instagram, knowing that I have that external accountability. What else do you get? You also get a beautiful and hardworking website from Monica at Hold Space Creative. Monica is a former art therapist turned website designer for therapists. So she gets what you need on your website. She knows what it's like to help cultivate easy pages for your potential clients to read. And she also knows, like, from a design standpoint, what looks good, what's aesthetically pleasing, what makes sense from a user standpoint. So when you join, you get one of her pre-designed websites, which is a huge important task for private practice therapists. So many of them just have a Psychology Today profile. No shade if that's you. We can change it. But there's like no online footprint outside of that. And we need to have our own real estate, which is why it's so important to have our own website. So you'll get your own website too. You will also get access to a community of folks. It's not on Facebook. I hate Facebook groups. Let me take that back. I don't hate Facebook groups. I just don't love them. I find them really distracting, really noisy. I find that when I log into Facebook, I end up getting distracted. So this is in Mighty Networks, which is a woman-owned group. And it's like similar to Facebook, and then it's like a forum, but it's just us. So you don't have to log in and see all your friends from high school. You log in and you just see people from Grow a Profitable Practice from the inside out. Hey, Taylor. All right. When does this kick off? We kick off on Monday. Monday, December 14th, we start. We end Monday, February 22nd. There are 2 days off, December 28th and January 25th. We meet Mondays at noon EST, which is lunchtime for folks like me in the Midwest. And for folks out on the West Coast, if you're in North America, that is, breakfast time. And if you're over in Europe, like Taylor, it's like right before dinner. So either way, it's like either right at the start of your day, right in the middle of your day, or at the end of the day, depending on where in the world you are. Now, if you are Asia bound, this will be like really hard for you to show up live because it'd be smack in the middle of the night. What other questions come up? As I'm going through this, if you guys have questions about the program, please type them in the chat. I'm so happy to answer them. Logistics questions, do you get continuing ed? No, because you can invest in yourself and your self-growth and development and not need to get a continuing education credit. I know that's hard for us therapists to wrap our heads around, but it's so important. What if I want to join, but I see a client on Monday at lunchtime? First homework assignment, friend. First boundary. Tell your client, hey, something came up. I need to move you to 11 a.m. or I need to move you to 1 p.m. You can do it. That's the beauty of owning your own private practice, is saying, you know what, my schedule's actually changing. And you can tell them it's a temporary change, or you can tell them it's a permanent one, whatever you want. Of course, you can rewatch them on your own time if you absolutely can't be there live. But I know for me, again, just my personal experience, when I go to rewatch modules, I find them helpful, but I almost always pay more attention when I'm there live. Why? I don't know. I'm sure there's a psychological reason, and one of you beautiful therapists can tell me why. But I tend to do better if I'm there live. Again, it's this accountability thing. So if you can move them, move them. And if you absolutely have a monthly mandatory meeting you can't miss, that's okay, right? We're humans, we're flexible, things come up. What about if I'm a therapist, but I'm not in the US? You are A-okay. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not a lawyer. So what I'm going to be teaching you are methods that are applicable pretty much across the board. In our last cohort, one of our folks was from Canada, and she was really sweet to say, look, I usually join American trainings and then have to kind of sift through what works for me and what doesn't, but Grow a Profitable Practice from the Inside Out actually was mostly applicable to me. There was like one tax thing that I had to change. But other than that, it was pretty easy. What if I'm not a therapist, but I'm kind of in the helping healing field? Can I join Grow a Profitable Practice from the Inside Out? Maybe. Totally depends. Last time we had a coach join, a career coach. I think that if this resonates with you, and if you're like, cool, I definitely need some money mindset work, but I also need some tangible strategies on how to niche, on how to price, on how to market myself, then I might be for you. I don't believe in bro marketing. I won't teach you ads. I'm not going to teach you anything bait and switch, right? Everything you see is what you get. If you've been following me a while, you kind of have an idea of what to expect. My method is like this. I'm a chatty Cathy. Hey, Steph. I'm very direct, but I'm also not an asshole. Like, at least I don't think I am. I don't try to be. So that's kind of my tone, my style. I'm very educational, but I love getting feedback. I love making sure what's working is working. So anyway, if you're in an adjacent field, like you're a health coach, you're a career coach, you're a hypnotherapist, you're a doula, you're a midwife, anything where you're providing a service, where you tend to charge hourly or in packages, then this program will work for you. Is your program safe for me? That's another big question that I want to answer. Is it safe for me if I'm from a marginalized community? Is it safe for me if I'm not Christian? Is it safe for me if I'm BIPOC? Is it safe for me if I'm queer? Is it safe for me if I'm neurodivergent? Is it safe for me if I'm disabled, right? All of these questions. And my answer is, I try my damnedest to make sure it is. I am not an anti-racism educator. I am not a justice, equity, diversity, inclusion educator, and I don't play one on TV or Instagram, but I do my best to make sure my programs are inclusive, and I don't tolerate anything hateful. So when clients join me, of course, I want to be clear that I am inclusive of all genders, races, countries of origin, sexual orientation, your religion, your ability, and I don't know everything. There's no possible way I could. So I probably will mess up, and I will own it. And I won't just say like, oh, I'm sorry, I hear you. That's what safe spaces do. And that's what drives me bonkers. I strive to be a brave space where I say, hey, I messed up. I'm going to do some education on my own time and fix whatever I messed up, right? Everybody who comes in to grow a profitable practice from the inside out, when they sign a contract. And of course, contracts, they are what they are, but I think it's important to at least include it. They say, look, I agree that I'm going to be kind, courteous, agree to learn from other, and not be hateful, and cultivate a harm-free community. Okay? Now, I am also not a fan of cancel culture. I am a fan of dialogue, but we can't have dialogue if somebody in the program doesn't feel safe. So I hope that helps to answer your money story. Another question I get is like, how do I even know if I have a bad money story? Take a listen to season 2 of my podcast, Mind, Money, Balance. Find it on all your podcast players. The entire second season is dedicated to therapists and money. Take a listen. See if any of them sound familiar. See if anything rings a bell. Another way you can check what's my relationship to money, think about the times you have transactions with money. Think about what comes up for you when you are paid, when you buy something, when you spend money, when you lend it. Anytime you have an interaction with money, check in with your brain and body about what signals are coming up for you. And that will help you to get an idea of what is my relationship with money. Am I pretty avoidant? Am I tense? Am I excited? Do I love it? Who knows? But if you have a money story that's unhelpful, it's going to prevent you from cultivating a sustainable and profitable business. It just is. All right. Sold? You ready? You want to join me? You got to apply, and you got to apply quick. As I mentioned, we start on December 14th. That is next Monday. I need your applications in by tomorrow so I can make sure everything's ready to go, up and running. If you have questions about this, if you are ready to apply, let me rewind. If you have questions about them, you can type them in the chat, of course, or DM me. I'm in my DMs all the time. If I don't respond to you, it's probably because I didn't see it because your profile is set to private. Sometimes those private messages get hidden for me on Instagram. Okay. So if I don't respond to you quickly, make sure to go to my website. You can email me. You can find a way to connect with me there. And if you are ready to apply, you are going to go to mindmoneybalance.com/profitable practice, and you can find how to apply there. Cool. I think there was one other thing I wanted to tackle. It'll come to me. While it's coming to me, if you have questions, type them in. Type them in. That was strange to say. Oh, okay. I remember the question. The question was like, are you going to help me with bookkeeping? Are you going to recommend accountants? Are you going to recommend lawyers? Or do we get access to lawyers or accountants or CPAs? The answer is, the legal answer and the real answer is, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an accountant. And I don't play one on Instagram or YouTube. I am not here to say this is the accountant you should be working with. What I will say is here are the tools that I use. You may find them helpful, but I won't personally be the person looking at your numbers and telling you what to do. You should be talking to an accountant about that. If you don't have an accountant when you join the program, of course, I can give you my recommendations of folks who I like. But that was a big question, was like, are you going to help me with all the back end business stuff? And no, I won't. I mean, plain and simple, I just won't. I think those were all the big questions. I might have had one more, but I'm going to pop over to YouTube because I know there's some folks over there and see if there's any questions there. And otherwise, if you're just joining me, what I want you to do once this is done is go back to the start. Check in with yourself. I was talking about why we wait to set goals until 2021 and why that is problematic. And the reality is, it's like there are real excuses and then there are mindset excuses, right? A real excuse that most people are experiencing right now is we're stuck at home. We are worried about the state of our country. If you're in the US, if you're in Canada, very jealous of you. I wish I could go visit you, but your borders are closed to me. You are probably sick of being at home. If you have children, you are probably parenting and teaching and cooking and cleaning and trying to work. That is a real thing. And we have a little bit more time, 4 or 6 months, depending on who you're talking to, of life being like this. So now is probably as good a time as any to get started. And waiting until 2021 is just an arbitrary way to push off and procrastinate what you know you need to do. I say that with love. I'm not saying that with judgment. If it sounds like judgment, I apologize. So that's it. I hope to see all of your beautiful faces. I want you to apply for my program if you're interested. Oh, here's a question somebody asked. Are you running it again? Right? Everybody's like, I want to do it, but I want to do it next time. I've been there. Here's a straight up answer. I have no idea. I started this program because over the summer, my inbox and DMs were getting flooded with therapists saying, how did you do what you did? How did you fill a practice? How did you come to be comfortable with money? How did you figure out how to raise your rates? And I said, look, I'm just going to answer all the questions for you and I'm going to put it in a group container. And that's why I did it. I did not have plans of doing this at the start of 2020. Once that happened, I ran the group once. I loved it. It was amazing. I got a ton of good feedback about what to tweak, what to improve, because again, it's a group. That means it's evolving and feedback is warranted and needed. And I'm doing it again now. I would love to do it in the future, but I do not know if I'm going to do it in the future. It depends on my energy. It depends on my time. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on if this next group is like, yeah, we love it, you know? So I think that's all the questions. I always want to do this. I think it's because my nephew does this. Bye. So sorry for that inappropriate air kiss.